Hello there, and welcome back to our Let's Play of, well, Gary Grigsby's War in the East here. So, today we're back and we're checking out another one of the scenarios inside the game. Today we're taking a look at the Road to Kiev scenario. So in this one, it is the southern front of, well, Operation Barbarossa once again. And, well, I figured we'd do something slightly different here and play it from the Soviet perspective here. So let's load this up and let's see how this goes. We might do, say, one more scenario afterwards, perhaps from one of the expansions, but for now we'll check out the scenario and see how it goes. So, this will show us kind of the perspective of the war from a different perspective, which is kind of nice. So on the southern front here, Germany and its allies start the war off with its allies fixed. Lots of combat goes down along the front. And as you see here, the game kind of prompts us for a lot of this combat. I'm just going to skip most of it because we kind of know already what happens here. We're playing the game on easy, so this will be, say, it will be truly a lot more easier than what we typically see. But anyhow, the game will go through here, and what I wanted to show you guys is kind of, how the AI does on an offense and what the Soviet player should be doing here. So, like the scenario kind of says, we want to try to preserve as much of our forces as possible. We want to kind of defend as many different portions of different river fronts and just in general, easy to defend locations as possible. And, well, this one has the added bonus where, as the Soviet player, one of the things that you want to do here is you want to keep your mechanized core intact. So taking a look at the losses, they are surprisingly small for what you typically go with, and that is of course because of the fact that a lot of your losses are smaller, because we're playing on the easy difficulty here. And taking a look at all the different troops, it looks like a lot of our forces behind the ranks are still fixed, and now we have the German invasion to deal with. So one of the things I wanted to bring up was coming from the Smolensk video. I said that when you kind of take control of zones, you kind of automatically convert them to your presence. It actually happens between turns. So with that said, as you see here, these forces, I don't believe they're fully encircled because of the swamp area over here, but nevertheless, it is a important distinction. And what happened inside the south here was that Germany took to the offensive, where its allies, kind of over here along the mountainside, it kept to themselves. But nevertheless, they were prepped to kind of help out here as best as they can. The Germans had also amassed a few troops down here as well. So with all of our forces, we want to think about, whether or not we want to defend these locations, and kind of more importantly, how do we defend these locations as well. So currently the front is in array. One of the things I wanted to bring up was the German, the troop qualities over here. So we've taken a look at these panels once before, and my idea here is just gradually introduce the game to you guys, of course. So now we can take a look at a few different sections here, which is pretty important. So your different troops have an actual table of equipment and a theoretical table of equipment. So what goes on here is that, you can... firstly, as the game goes on, your forces upgrade is the thing. Secondly, you can set the priority of how well you kind of want to boost up these units, and if they're, I believe, infantry units, you can choose to motorize them, but that comes at a cost of, the trucks required to do that. So, another thing is the idea of morale over here. So units gain morale, I believe, by winning combat victories and a few other things. There's also one for the country in general, which kind of modifies that. Going from there, there's a few different things going on here. So with the SU, you have a system of different leaders for these HQs, which is fairly important. So taking a look at, say, for example, these units, they are affected by whatever leader you have here commanding their force. So we can spend administration points, which is the 18 of things we have here, to reassign different leaders. And these different leaders, they provide a wide variety of different bonuses, one specifically to kind of each and every single one of these different troops, one to initiative, which actually affects how well they move, morale again does exactly what it says, and administration, I'm not too terribly sure as to what that does. Political is kind of I would say it's kind of a bad trade in the sense that the higher it gets, the more it costs to rotate out your leaders there. So, some very important things going on there. One of the things we should take a look out for is perhaps swapping out some of the leaders of these mechanized corps to perhaps people who are, say, better suited to lead them. But for now, we have to stabilize this front, so we'll have to try to figure out what we want to do here. So we want to try to salvage as much of our tanks and just in general our infantry as possible. And with that said, I want our forces to just gradually flee towards the rear. So these forces, they are trapped, so we're going to deal with them straight away. We'll get them to pull back. And what I want to do here is I want to keep all the tanks and stuff where they are for now. And I really only want to kind of commit the most essential troops. So that is one thing. Get our forces to pull back as best as we can. And the other thing here is the importance of kind of defending along these river fronts. So taking a look at our leaders again, we want to see who exactly is suited for command. And this guy over here, General Konstantin Rokossovsky of the 9th Mechanized here, from the looks of things, he actually commands a sizable amount of tanks. And with that said, I mean, we're rather that infantry unit that he leads, the one that actually is mechanized, it's not too great. I mean, we could try to replace him for someone who is, say, slightly better, though I don't know whether or not we can find somebody like that. So he is a general major. We'll try to find someone who is kind of on the same par as him. So it will cost us a certain amount of a certain amount of points. And taking a look here at these different combat values, we want someone with decent initiative and perhaps a higher trait here for mechanized, though it doesn't look like we have one. So with that said, I guess we'll keep them as is. And overall, we want to take a look at these people as we go along here. So this guy, he's commanding 2 tank units. He only has a value of 4, so we can probably reassign someone else to that. Somebody who has high initiative and ideally high mechanized as well. So somebody like that who's currently commanding a rifle corps would be much better. So we'll swap them out. And we shall pull the 2 HQs back, and we'll pull back to the riverfront to defend. So, and again, a big portion of this is the idea that what you're trying to do here is set up good defensive positions along the riverfronts and things like that, things that, you can probably easily hold. So these 2 forces, we'll get them to set up here. The motorized corps here, I'm seeing whether or not we can perhaps change out its HQ, but it looks like it's actually right over there, so that's fine. And, well, we'll just gradually pull back. And the idea is that you want to make these lines of defense for your forces. So I'm going to move all these HQs back by 1 tile. My idea being that, assuming the AI kind of breaks through these lines, they'll have difficulty still moving the 2 tiles required to get any farther. So that's going to be the general pacing of this. So we're kind of taking a look at, command and control here. And again, over here, this guy is leading a lot of tanks and a lot of motorized infantry, but he doesn't have that type of mechanized skill for it. We still have 10 admin points, so we can swap him out with somebody who's a little bit better. And with that said, I think we'll swap him out for these guys over here. Now, honestly, I'm not too familiar with the Soviet kind of line of different commanders, so I'm more or less just swapping them out based upon their ratings. And then, there's kind of bad things and good things there, but we'll go with it for now. And in general, I'm looking to fortify as many of these lines as possible as the game goes on. So, up inside the northern pocket here, we've kind of evacuated as many troops as possible, and we're pulling back to this river over here to defend. And, under the map, yeah, that's the river name, I guess. So that's one of the things we can do. Going back again, Dmitri of this mechanized corps, we could try to replace him, but it doesn't look like we have enough points to do so. So that's rather unfortunate. We'll move him back, and we'll get his army of tanks and other things to pull back again once more. And this will be just a general theme here. So along the front here, from the looks of things, the Russians are already pouring through, and you know, with that, I think we'll pull the HQs back, and we'll get whatever amounts of infantry we have to pull back. So again, you have this issue where it's like, do you want to try to preserve your troops by pulling back, or do you want to keep these lines intact, which is a pretty neat mechanic. I don't believe we've taken a look at this as well. So you can change your units between, I believe, 3 or 4 different modes, one of them being conditional. So you have the ready mode, which is your average combat unit, really. And then you have the other modes being, I already see that the enemy is kind of making a few breaches here, and I doubt that'll hold, so that's why I'm pulling these guys back. You also have the reserve mode, and what the reserve mode does is it sets up your units so that they'll try to assist combat in near itself. I don't know the exact hex range for that. So currently I see a lot of these units that we could have in reserve, but I'm going to put the mountaineers on top of the mountain. And what we can do here is, with, say, for example, something like this, an artillery brigade, which has you know, a fair amount of combat power in terms of anti-tank mostly. We can get it we can get them to be a reserve unit, and with them, they'll be able to try to reinforce anything along the front there. So all very, very helpful. So that's one thing. We pulled back a fair amount of our forces, and we'll continue trying to do so. So I suppose this will be a bit of a tutorial into how do you defend. So pull back those people like that, and the rest of the front just kind of goes on. Pull back the cav over here. And I think we'll get the infantry just to make a defense near Tarnpool over here. And the rest of the units. Okay, so they are going right through our lines. So I'll pull back that unit, despite the fact that they'll be separated from whatever they have over there. And let's pull back all of the mechanized units, the Southern Army front in general, to somewhere over here. Right. So now that we're defending these river fronts, hopefully our troops will be able to make a few defenses before anything. And again, taking a look at our different lines, this guy for 6th Army, he probably isn't going to be a commander that we want along the front. And he currently drops, you know, very subpar bonuses to a lot of the things here. So we can go along the chain here, taking a look at the different commanders and taking a look at, you know, whether or not they are kind of the commanders that we would want. So we've given up some territory, but we've fortified along, I would say, some of the better lines of defense here. So I'm fine with that. And over here we can pull back a few more troops. And the idea here is that you either want to make, you know, multiple lines of defense, or you know, ideally you would be able to make multiple lines of defense. But if you're unable to do that, then try to pull back to ideally, you know, wherever you can, really. So that's what we've done here. Now let's see whether or not we can get any more troops to maybe set up a few more river lines, and it doesn't look like we can. Well, never mind. We have some paratroopers here set on reserve, and well, with these guys we can get them to set up a second river line right over here. And there. So we've given up a fair amount at the front, but at the same time, that should help us out in holding, well, these lines for now. So now, we're going to ship this game back, and we'll see what the AI does here. Okay, so a lot of turns are going to advance. They're going to push, you know, with their tanks again on some of the units that weren't able to move. And now all we have to do is just stall the Axis advance here for some time. So it's a good thing they're hunting our stranded units around this swamp, actually, because near that swamp, we're not going to see too much movement. So you can pull back there, and the Axis haven't started their attack on the southern flank here, so all the better. So now this should throw things back in our court, and hopefully we'll be able to see some building up of forces along the front. So there we go, end of logistics, and this will ship it back to us. So we can take a look at some of the losses here once again, but so far so good. One of the things I wanted to focus on is, well, coming back to the map, we can see some levels of entrenchment going up. That'll make things more and more difficult for the Axis to move forwards now. But one of the things we want to consider is whether or not we still want to hold these river lines right over here. Here, what we want to do is that this unit over here, the 124th Rifle Division, they are probably, isolated at the most. So we're going to swap them out for another corps, and we'll get them to join the defense over here. Now, there's a fair amount of HQs we wanted to swap out for now, though. I'll see whether or not I can find them anymore. So I remember 26th Army here. He's being led by, and this guy is... he's not that great, but I'm going to take a look around even more to see whether or not there's anybody kind of even more incompetent than them, and we'll swap these people out for better leaders soon enough. So, for example, one guy right over here, we can kind of put in, say, for example, somebody like this person, which would be a bit better, but he would be ideally somebody we keep for infantry. So taking a look around, good initiative leaders with kind of low costs here. They're starting to become more difficult to find as we reassign people, but something like that would be slightly better. So, you know what, taking a precautionary move, we will ship these forces right over here. The idea being that we'll get our forces to man these river defenses once again, and I know that the border here, the border won't hold, but so long as we keep pushing or keep pulling back, we'll have a better chance at holding there. My guess is that in one turn these forces along the side will be freed, so they'll start to make an advance, and we can hold this line for now, which will buy us a turn, and then afterwards pull back to something slightly better over here. So, as a matter of fact, we have some troops to go along here, and I think I'll change my mind about setting up there. And in the meantime, these forces will hopefully dig in and make protecting this line slightly easier in the future by digging in and already settling down some fortifications. Right. So what that's happening in the meantime, we try to pull out as much as we can from these river tiles. And you know what? I think I'll get them to move along the edge of the swamp here, so they still exert some zone of control over whatever is being sent there. So, noting another portion of the game is, well, the combat log here. So the logistics phase event log will tell you a lot about a fair amount of different things. Ideally, you'll take a look at this each turn. Most of the stuff, you're being honest, it isn't terribly important, but there's a few different things you want to keep track of. So it'll tell us a bit about partisans and as they form. That'll be important later on, but for now, that'll be a minor thing. The main thing is that it'll tell us, how much manpower are we getting, how much reinforcements are we getting onto the front lines, and kind of what exactly our production is. So in terms of production, most of the stuff, honestly, it won't be terribly important, but what I'm looking for here is, am I getting any, strong, say for example, Tiger tanks and stuff like that, some of the really important equipment here. So it'll tell us a bit about that, whether or not we're getting some more tanks, whether or not our vehicles are kind of being repaired, which is fairly important here. So for example, 122 vehicles are being put back along the front, and early on inside the war, the Soviet Union's KV-1 tanks were very important, so we're seeing, stuff like that. In addition, as we go down here, it'll tell us, whether or not new units are kind of forming, whether or not we get certain things along the map here, and some stuff about how our supply trucks are moving around. And this part I find especially important. It'll tell us about, how our production's going. That'll be very critical inside the main campaign, and just how our losses are going as well. And furthermore, you can take a look at some of the stuff in here. So, for example, different things in supply, say supply gain and stuff like that, with our different units and stuff like that. And overall, the commander's report is also fairly useful as a bit of a check. There's also a listing of all of the units present here. This is fairly useful for finding different, units as you go along, but I don't think it's a critical portion as some people kind of make it out to be. So overall, our forces are in pretty good shape, I would say. All I would have to do is, I think, you know what? I pull back this unit on top of the mountain, get them to sit down there, and that is pretty much all I do for now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Or, you know what? Can I move these guys one more tile? Doesn't look like I can't move them one more tile through the swamp. So, at this point, yeah, we kind of end things off and pass the turn. Or, you know what, we could get these forces over here. I'm not going to use the railroad system, but I'll ship down another kind of blank core to the side here, and we'll get them to reinforce the riverfront soon enough. And there we go. I think combat starts on the southern front now, perhaps. Doesn't look like the AI went with the grand kind of airplane or airfield bombardment as we've done inside our first few turns. So with that said, our aircraft seem to be doing a fair amount of interdiction, which is good. Over here, they're gonna take over the fortifications fairly easily. And now I guess the game will move forwards from here. So this might be a fairly short episode on just how to defend inside the game. From the looks of it, I probably should have put the AI onto the normal difficulty, because it doesn't look like they are really blitzing us and kind of actively going across these rivers over here. So I think we might just end the episode here, but I hope that gives you guys kind of a perspective as to how to defend. From the looks of things, they did indeed move their units along this area right over here, but they didn't move. But I guess the AI kind of considered the fact that they didn't have enough combat power to go through our units over here. And again, if you remember, our units here, they show up, I believe, as how much combat power they possess. Or no, never mind. I was going to say they show attack and defense, but it looks like it's actually movement points. But either way, seeing as how we're entrenched over here, and our units right now, they're not necessarily of bad quality. The Germans will have quite a lot of difficulty moving through these lines. So I think we'll just end the video here, and that shows off what I wanted to do: logistics, leaders, and kind of this river combat, as people call it. So I think I'll show you. I think we'll revisit the game later on, and perhaps one of the more developed later war scenarios. But for now, we'll head off here. So as always, bye for now. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the War in the East series so far.